Cool. So thank you everybody for coming to my AI for Small Businesses webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to have kind of a frank, nuanced discussion about AI, where we're not necessarily evangelizing for it, but we're also not necessarily just rejecting it outright, just kind of taking a realistic view of like, hey, if I'm a small business owner and I don't really give a crap about this in a vacuum, is it to my benefit or not? Where can I use it? What kind of tools should I be using? It's really aimed at just kind of a layman audience who just isn't necessarily a techie person, but just wants to know if it can benefit their business or not. So topics we're going to cover are like the risks and dangers of it. Is it trustworthy? What are the best tools to be using in the current landscape? What are areas where it does and does not excel with the current level of technology? For anyone watching this in the future, it's very possible that technology will have evolved significantly 6 months from now, and this will all be completely obsolete. But this is just like a snapshot of the current landscape as of today. So yeah, AI for small business. Quick intro for the guest speakers. And thank you guys again so much for participating in the webinar. I love having the community come together to like share knowledge. So we have Marty Humphreys with MSH Consulting. Marty, do you want to give a quick intro?
Hi, I'm Marty. MSH Consulting, I'm the founder and chief confidant. I'm a micro business that helps organizations do marketing when they don't have marketing departments. It's also my pleasure to be the marketing strategist for Sparkspace Creative, a design studio who helps organizations amplify their brand so that their value proposition and mission they can concentrate on their mission and their value proposition, and we amplify their message.
Yes. I'd also like to add that I've personally gotten some strategic advice from Marty on a couple of occasions that was extremely helpful. Next, we have Corrine Torpy, who works with Nexus Blue.
Yeah, went to school to be a data analyst. This is a midlife career change for me. I've been saying that now for 2 years, I guess, 3 years, but it still feels like a transition. I still feel like a newbie in the tech world. So I'm always learning something, and ChatGPT is kind of my go-to for everything I want to have a question.
Nice, thanks for joining us. And Haley Clark with the Green Tree Group.
Oh. My name is Haley Clark. I'm the creative marketing specialist at the Green Tree Group and Back to Business IT. We're a business solutions firm located in Beaver Creek, Ohio, and we do all kinds of, basically we're the people part of tech implementation. And how I ended up in this space is I've been a marketer for graphic designer, all that, but web developer for about 20 years now. But man, time goes so fast. But I've been doing that for a while, and working for a company that does a lot of tech implementations, all of that. I ended up in this AI space. And also, just sort of as a side note, Corinne, Marty, and I, we all were the leaders of the AI Collective chapter in Dayton. So we got together and did that. So that was all. Okay, I'm done.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I understand you guys have an upcoming meeting, don't you?
Yes. On, was it January 29th? And I know that Marty and Corinne, we are going to be having it at the Sinclair AI Excellence Innovation. Is it? It's AI Innovation Lab. Thank you. It's like there's a bunch of words.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yep. There's so much cool stuff at Sinclair like that.
Yep. And it's really neat that they've started this program over there, and Lindsay Tate and I believe Nancy Percy are going to be doing a presentation talking about all the stuff that they're doing over at Sinclair, and I'm just excited to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Also, I love the thing about I can't remember the exact phrasing you used, but being like the human-centric solution in the tech space. I love that, because coming from a tech background, there's so many people who really want to ignore the human element of it. And it's like, even no matter how tech focused of a company you are, people are still like the currency of what you're doing and are like the bottleneck of it, like relationships with customers, relationships with your employees. Like the human element will always be more important than technology.
Absolutely. Yeah, because there's ones using it.
Yeah. I've met a lot of engineers who really want that to not be the case.
Absolutely. Yes.
So a quick note before we really get into the meat of the discussion, but I think this is a question that a lot of people have who are not tech savvy, is like they have this fear. And I think this fear is kind of being stoked by the AI companies because they really want everyone to like buy into like the maximum hype. But if you're a small business owner, are you necessarily going to fall behind if you don't like fully embrace AI? Like, are you going to be out of business overnight if you don't lean into AI super hard? I don't think so. I think you could totally ignore AI and do just fine. I mean, unless you're like in the technology space, maybe. But like if you're like a carpenter or a plumber or something, you're probably fine. It could help you, but
I think of coffee shop owners, right? Like in AI, it could be in their cash register, it could be in their scheduling, it could be in their ordering, their inventory. There's an operational layer of it that's already there that you can like get so used to. It's like an end table in your living room and be just fine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to address like that kind of like fear, the fear of missing out element to it. That's like kind of two sides of the same coin with all the hype that the AI companies are successfully creating. So on our first topic, excuse me, on our first topic, I wanted to discuss for lay people what makes something AI versus not AI. Because frankly, there's been a lot of tools coming out that are putting AI on it as like a buzzword or as a marketing point that are not actually really AI or like have a minimal AI element, but are really just like a traditional program in most capacities. Does anybody want to jump in?
I'm going to push Haley forward in this. Well, because, okay, Haley likes to play with the toys, y'all. I'm just going to out her on that one. And thank heavens that she does, because we'll get into conversations. This is, what Corinne, Haley, and I do. This is what we talk about. And she will come to each conversation with something else she has tried and the pros and the cons and how it helped her and actually using it. So, and particularly in terms of small businesses, Haley, what do you think?
I think that as far as the tools that are out there, there are so many, and everybody's, especially if you're a small business owner, you're getting hammered with ads. If you're on Facebook, you're probably getting like auto-targeted ads for tools that are going to help you get X, Y, and Z done. The one thing about this entire, the glut that we are currently experiencing, this giant push for, individualized solutions. The problem is that there is probably an AI solution that says it's an AI solution for everything that is out there, that you could have one that helps you with your HR, one that helps you with your inventory, one that, and you can spend tons and tons. Sorry.
Oh,
to switch microphones.
There you are.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me right now?
I wasn't sure if
Yes.
that was just
Yes.
on my end. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Okay, good, excellent. I was like, I'm sure I just lost my microphone. But anyway, but there's so many different tools that exist out there, and the one major issue is that we're in such an attention economy that it's like you're having to parse through all of this data to be like, well, is this going to help me? Is this not going to help me? You're looking at all of these different things that can help your business. The problem is that these AI solutions, they're mostly just a major few, 5 companies. You've got, Perplexity and Microsoft and Google, and, these major ones exist, and OpenAI, obviously, that they are out there with these major solutions, but all of these other tiny solutions are the ones that are coming out saying we have this hyper specific solution to this very specific problem, when in reality, you could probably just buy one big thing to attack all of this together. But there's so much out there and so much misinformation, and you have a lot of people trying to sell you lots of things that ultimately, if you're a small business owner, you kind of want to start playing, but don't start shelling out cash immediately for tools that may not benefit you in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree that the landscape is currently kind of a mess.
Yeah.
But I guess at the end of the day, if a tool works for somebody, it kind of doesn't matter whether it's
Absolutely.
like really AI or not.
Yeah.
But for anyone who's watching who is interested on like the nerd angle of it, fundamentally whether something's AI or not comes down to, so our current versions of AI or LLMs, large language models to be more specific, are based on a model where basically you can take a large amount of data, that within that data, like say if it's like, as like to use like coding as an example, there's a website called Stack Overflow, which has for decades been the repository of like, if you have like a coding tech related question, you would go ask there and then somebody would answer that. So they're able to take all of the data from that and all of the knowledge contained within it and use that to train a program that has learning capabilities to basically extract that data from that data set and then incorporate it into its own knowledge, so that when you then interact with it through a natural language interface where you're just typing to it like you would another human, it's able to pull from that data heuristically and give the knowledge back to you. So that's like one of the key things that defines like what is AI really. Although some people argue whether or not LLMs really count as AI, but that's really just like a tech nerd discussion. For our purposes, that's AI. So I'm going to probably go ahead and move on to the next slide unless anyone has any other thought.
I have a thought that I'm going to push Corinne on.
Okay.
In terms of our audience and our conversation, small businesses. So Haley, to her point about how there are so many tools, you are aware of an aggregate tool
Yes.
that might benefit small businesses, and not that I don't sell this or anything, and there's probably more than the one you use. There are probably others. So please,
Yeah.
investigate. Hey, y'all who are in this conversation, investigate others like this. But as an example, and it's the one you use, do you want to tell them about the advantages of your aggregate tool?
Yes. So I have access to a tool called Magi, MAGAI, that allows you to access, and it's not as much direct tools, but it allows you access to different models. So the Grok, the Copilot, the ChatGPT, Llama, trying to remember it has a giant list of different tools you can access for one cost per month. And it's only like the tokens are how much data you can do on it is limited, but it's only like $20 a month. So it's a really good tool. I think when someone is first starting out, trying to figure out what one you do want to pay for, because one model is going to be better with images, one's videos, one's research, some are better with coding. So really figuring out which one works best for you, is it's kind of nice to be able to access multiple under that same cost. So you can go and ask the same question of all the different models, is what I did, and
That's cool.
see what came back and what answer fit, how they were different, if there was anything wrong. So
that's cool. I'll have to check that out.
yeah, Magi is an interesting tool for that, and it's relatively inexpensive. So versus going out and paying for a Grok subscription and a ChatGPT and you can access multiple. I think it's a good shopping tool. I don't know that it's necessarily the right long-term tool for most people, but I think it's a great way to try.
Mm-hmm. And Magi is probably not the only one out there doing this. So we're not saying, hey, go get Magi or anything, but we are saying like Google it and see what others are out there, and then
that's just the
make
one
up your own mind. Yeah,
that's just the one
sure.
I have access to.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. That sounds cool. So we can move on to the next slide. So I think we kind of already started to get into this, but what's the landscape for AI tools today? Like if I'm like a small business owner and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try AI, what should I use? So obviously the most obvious answer is ChatGPT. That's like kind of the biggest one. There's also two main competitors to my mind for ChatGPT. There's Google's Gemini AI, and then there's a company called oh shoot, what's the company that makes Claude? Anthro something?
Anthropic.
Anthropic.
Yeah, and the company Anthropic makes one called Claude. If you ask some people, some of those are better for certain tasks. A lot of people in the tech community think that Claude is best for coding. I'm sure if you ask, like, some people would say like, oh, Gemini is better for this and GPT is better for this. To my knowledge, there's not really like a clear cut winner between those three currently. I mean, that could change next week, but right now I think they're about all equal. Anyone have any? I mean, we were already talking about some specific products, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that there's really, I mean, at this stage, it really comes down to, especially for people that are just entering their journey with AI or generative AI tools, that we're at this place technologically overall that they're in the space race right now to see who's going to come out in front, who's going to have the best deep research function, who's going to have the best agent function, who's going to do all of these different things. So regardless of where you start, it really comes down to, as you play with those tools, figuring out which one has the best version of X, like depending on what your use case is, because there's so many different applications to everything that generative AI can do. It's really more about, what do you specifically need it for? What do you want it for? What things do you want it to accomplish? And within each of those, GPT or Gemini or Claude, wherever you start, they'll probably have strengths and weaknesses depending on what your specific needs are. But if you're willing to kind of play between them, it's more figuring out how to prompt and sort of building your own knowledge set of what things, it can do for you.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to address the idea of wrapper tools, which I don't know if anyone else present is familiar with this term because it's more from the techie space. But you talked about, like, there's GPT and Gemini and those, that's like a very, very general tool that can do a lot of different things. And then there are many tools that are like much more specific, solving a really specific problem. So I would say probably like 95% of those are what in the tech space are known as wrappers, like GPT wrappers, because they are essentially using like the GPT or Gemini or Claude models. Like they are running it through GPT on the same servers and everything as you would if you just went on ChatGPT and typed yourself. But they add a wrapper layer on top of that might have like a custom set of instructions or some kind of like custom interface. Those can be valuable, but a lot of those tools end up failing because they fail to provide like an actual added value, and they're super reliant on another company's product. So there was, like, for example, when ChatGPT like 3 or 4 came out, there was a big rush to build a bunch of apps that were essentially wrapper tools. And later GPT changed, or OpenAI, I should say, changed their internal infrastructure, and overnight, like hundreds of those companies that had been built on creating those wrapper tools went out of business because the thing they had built was no longer feasible, or GPT adds or incorporates that feature into their own into their actual product. So that's kind of something to keep an eye out for. I don't know if that really matters to the consumer that much, but
it does matter.
I
think it's incredibly valuable to know, because I mean, there was one tool. So to give you an example, like a use case of one of these wrappers was around Christmas time. There's a lot of people who have kids who have like the elf on the shelf thing that for their kids. And one of the things that was out was this app that you could take a picture and the data from your elf on the shelf, like a picture of your elf in a location, plus like the name of that, and different elements that were specific to the Elf on the Shelf universe, that it would create a video based on the information you gave it. But it was really just a Gemini, I think it was either Grok or Gemini video wrapper. That was all it was. But it was one of I forget which tool it was, but effectively every single video was like 9 $95. And I was like, wow, that's good money if you can get it. It's like if you spend X amount of dollars for something that is effectively this other thing with a custom prompt, that's one of those wrapper tools that's out there. So, you know, by next year, it probably will be defunct because there's going to be something else that will take its place, or people might get wise that they can just go that with, you know, Grok or Gemini or whatever.
Yeah, to my mind, the shape of the landscape, and the reason I really bring up wrapper tools is, to my mind, the landscape is really very, very much dominated by essentially those three companies. I guess I haven't really done anything with Grok myself personally, but I guess you could put that on there if you wanted. But to my mind, like those three companies plus maybe one or two others, by a very, very wide margin, have the most powerful tools that are going to be like of the most benefit to most people. I think it's becoming increasingly difficult just in terms of like hardware capabilities for like any other AI company to create a product that isn't like somehow a wrapper, unless it's like a really specific use case. It's actually weirdly, it's becoming actually like on a physical level difficult for any other AI company now to like start up and compete, because there's actually now a worldwide shortage of like RAM and video cards, because it's all being bought up on like a global scale for these AI companies. So like in a very real way, like I mean, like I wanted to look at like, are there, and I did a bunch of research for this, is like, are there a bunch of tools out there that like I haven't heard about that are like in addition to GPT and Gemini and Claude that like people should be using? And there's a bunch you can hear about, but like 90% of them are wrappers. A fair amount of them I think are like borderline scams, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think there's a lot of tools billing themselves as AI that are like essentially a scam. I find it hard. I mean, we talked about the aggregate tool. That's a good example of like an additional tool outside of these main three that's useful. But I have yet to find anything outside of the main chatbot AIs that like is an additional product in the AI space that I think is actually like good, unless it's like integrating those into something. Like you could like integrate GPT into Google Docs or whatever and be able to like do prompts from within that. But that's not a different product. That's just like connecting two things together. So does anybody, other than the ones we already discussed, does anyone have any like specific tools or apps that are not one of the things we just said that you think are like a legitimately good additional AI product?
I'm watching the chat to see if anybody.
Oh yeah, if anyone has
if
in the
they-
chat, feel
if they
free to
raise their
chime
hands.
in.
Yeah, I'm watching that.
I mean, I would love to find more products. Like I really wanted to, but it seems like it's mainly those three.
Rochelle says Dola AI is not in the US, unfortunately.
I've not heard of that one. Let me look that up real quick.
Okay.
It's
think
another chat assistant, it looks like.
I was going to say that actually that does bring up a good point, because there are other models that are outside of the U.S. So the company that I work for is a government contractor, and we can't use DeepSeek. DeepSeek we can't, and that one's out of China.
Oh, yeah.
So and DeepSeek is one of the other ones that's actually, you know, giving them a run for their money. So
Yeah, supposedly it's like very comparatively powerful, but uses a lot less hardware supposedly.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, there's kind of like security issues. I think there was some question of like whether that company was like partly controlled by the Chinese government, or that, I don't want to get into like the political angle of it, but you're not really, I don't know if it's, are you only not allowed to use it in the government spaces, or like is it just not? I think they had talked at one point about it
specifically, like, and I know that Ohio, there was some limitation, like the state of Ohio, there was some restriction, and I don't know that if it's an actual like government mandate that you can't use DeepSeek. It was more for our security purposes. We were like, we're not going to use this.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into like too much territory, but so yeah, I guess the conclusion here is as far as me or any of us are aware, the main chatbot apps are kind of the main thing. There are some like specialized sort of like derivative products off of those that have more specialized use cases and more specialized interfaces. I do think that even if you changed nothing and just had a wrapper product, having like a task specific interface can be like super, super valuable. Like this isn't relevant to most people, but like as a programmer, where they have like AI tools that are integrated into your coding environment, those can be incredibly valuable, because it used to be, if you like at first, if you wanted to use AI in coding, you had to be like copy and pasting back and forth a bunch. And it was still good, but as opposed to now, it's like very closely integrated together where you can like have a chat window and it automatically is able to look at the code you're working on at that moment. I'm sure there's similar things for like writing, for example, one tool that I do think is really cool that is not GPT or Gemini or Claude. If you use Adobe, if you have like Photoshop or Illustrator, there are some really good integrated tools that are not just like straight, hey, generate the image for me, but stuff like in Photoshop, for example, they have a tool called Generative Fill. And as well as some, as Rochelle points out in the chat, they also have these things called neural filters. So basically, they're what I'm talking about. They are very heavily integrated into the workflow. So it doesn't just do the work for you. What Generative Fill does is basically you could be like, hey, I have this photo, but like we didn't frame it right and my face is cut off on the side. You could increase the size of the photo and have the AI fill in the rest of what it looks like the photo should have.
Nice.
And that I think is a really excellent tool. I believe Adobe has their own custom AI model called Firefly. That I have found to be really useful. I'm a big proponent of like, don't have it do something for you, have it help you in the process. And I think the more of that there is, the better. I'm gonna go ahead on moving on the next slide here. So risks, we talked about this a little bit, but I always like to emphasize to people that there are some places where like it would be really awesome if you could use AI to help you, but it's simply too risky. So there's the concept of hallucinations, which for anyone who's unaware is basically like, even if the AI is right 99% of the time, 1% of the time, just because of the nature of the way it works, it will just make stuff up and it will just be wrong. Which, humans do that too. So
Reminds me of my grandpa.
yeah. So it's like, I like the comparison of like people saying AI is like an intern who's like really smart and really eager, but sometimes is overconfident. I think that's a perfect comparison. So there's also data security risks. Haley, you might be able to speak to that better than I do, working in like government spaces.
Yeah, we have a cybersecurity team here specifically that it's like that is one of the major conversations that a lot of people are having, especially in the government space, and also, even just for small businesses, looking at, the information that you have. What is the risk of putting your information into one of these models? Say you're a small business, so you're just you're that coffee shop that we were talking about earlier. If you have, at the end of the year, you want to see trends in your coffee shop and you've got your QuickBooks and you plug it in, you're like, listen, I want to take this information, I want to parse through it. You can plug it into OpenAI or Gemini or any of these tools. The question is what happens to your data? What happens when you put that data into those things? And you really want to focus on the terms and conditions of any product that you're going to integrate with. If you're at all going to put something that is proprietary or sensitive, I would not recommend putting your HR records into one of these tools that might be a wrapper that you didn't look at those terms and conditions, but is, like you really want to pay attention to where your data goes.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. For me, as a rule of thumb, if it's not on our website, it's not going in.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, just to give like another example that might like hit close to home for the small business community, like say if you were like oh, I really want to analyze this customer data. I have this spreadsheet with all of my customer data, and I would love to analyze that for trends. But does that spreadsheet have like their phone numbers, their addresses, other sensitive information? You might be able to like create a sanitized version of that where you remove the private information and then be able to use it without, violating someone's privacy.
Right.
And I mean, let's remember these are private companies that are like, they may or may not have in their terms and conditions like, hey, we can keep anything you upload to help train our models in the future. So there's also, I mean, I think this is like less of like a short-term individual concern, but some people in the creative spaces feel that they are hesitant to upload like their original creative works or like utilize AI in creating them, because technically, like if I was to like have written a novel or something and then put that into the AI to be like, hey, give me feedback about this, help me edit this, typos, whatever. Technically, I believe it would be fully permissible based on terms and conditions for the company to keep that information and use it to make their AI a better writer in the future.
Mhm.
And that, that kind of comes down to like sort of like an ethical, philosophical question. But like a lot of creators and writers feel that that is like stealing from them in a very real way, and that like that they're losing something from that exchange. So it's kind of up to the individual person whether you care about that. But excuse me.
I would add to that too, that that free version of whatever you want to use, free ChatGPT, free Grok, whatever, it's not free. You're paying with what you're putting in there. So the business enterprise, the paid subscriptions do have more guardrails. I'm not saying don't be cautious, but they do have more guardrails and are safer than those free versions. So that, I mean, that's the lesson. I think the lesson these days is nothing is ever free. You're paying with something.
Good point.
You're paying with something. So
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to call out. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
go ahead.
That's a good thing to call out, that there are tools and like additional tiers of a lot of these products available that have better data security and that like aren't necessarily going to share your data or like give ownership of your data to the company. They're just a lot more expensive generally. So like enterprise level stuff. I wanted to call out overconfidence as an AI problem, because the AI by default, and it's funny because they actually changed this at one point, but people complained, so they changed it back. The AI by default will kind of like gas you up. Like it'll make you like, oh, that's such a brilliant idea. Like you're such a visionary. You made such a great point. Like it will always have this kind of like kissing your butt attitude. And I have seen people get really overconfident to a dangerous level because of that. And I think it's really important for people to be aware of that, because like I have seen, I mean, not in person, but like on LinkedIn, I've seen a bunch of people who are like super leaning into AI and like, starting some startup company, creating some app or whatever. And like, clearly they used AI in like the whole process of like creating it and developing the brand. And it's like, just kind of untethered from reality in a way that like AI, the stuff that's like completely AI driven and doesn't have that like human element looped in can be. So I think it's always important to look at the information that it gives you with like a degree of skepticism. And like, even if I use AI for something, I always try to like also ask a human that I know who's an expert.
Good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I think is like, so we talk about using AI for scaling businesses, which could totally be a thing. But the thing that I see most often is that you can't scale something that like doesn't have the structure and like the infrastructure and the efficiency to be scaled. So like, for example, you'll see a lot of AI products that are pitching like, oh, we can make your company 10 times bigger because we can do X, Y, and Z. But the majority of small businesses don't really have like the infrastructure to support that. Like you don't have like the standard operating procedures totally nailed down. You don't have like the data infrastructure. So like, excuse me, a lot of these things that are being pitched as like, oh, this will make your business explode overnight. I don't think it really is applicable to a lot of small businesses who like don't have these like organized systems and like data infrastructures already in place. If you follow what I mean.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also a little bit like building a house on quicksand. Is when
Yeah,
you don't have
exactly.
the foundation. So that's actually one of the things that Nexus Blue does is we do work with people, companies of varying sizes to build that foundation, build those guardrails, get that processes nailed down. And that's part of what my company does is
Oh,
doing
nice.
that to make sure that when the AI does get implemented, when those processes do get scaled, it's built on a solid foundation.
Yeah, that sounds super valuable.
Yeah.
That's honestly probably, I mean, maybe a little off topic, but it's probably one of the biggest faults that I see with small businesses in general, like not even on the topic of AI, but it's like having a lack of like a solid kind of foundational infrastructure. Like a lot of small businesses, it's like if you removed the owner, the company would completely collapse. Like they could not be, because like 90% of what's needed to sustain the business is in their head. I mean, unfortunately, that's true of my business. I would like for that to change, but so yeah, scaling imperfect processes is a risk for AI. I do think there's like a reputational risk aspect, and that's, I mean, kind of regardless of like what your personal feelings are about AI, there are people who are just completely against it. And if you send like something that looks like AI to one of those people, they are going to hate you. Or at least like it can, I don't know, like I've gotten emails before that like I thought seemed AI written, like when I had taken the time to like write a whole email myself and then they write back with AI. I'm like, you know, AI is fine, but like I feel a little disrespected here. Like you couldn't take the time to write me an email yourself, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's honestly where we're at. It's an interesting space because, and this is the thing. This is my hyperfixation. So you activated my trap card. That
She's triggered.
when it comes to the perception of AI, this is very much like the consumer space right now is wild because you have, especially in the Ohio market right now, if you're paying attention to the news or you watch the news, it's all about data centers and everybody's focused on AI, and you have a lot of pushback in that space. And it's the conversation online is very much it is a battlefield right now because you have all of these tools that are suddenly being pushed out to people's phones that if you have a smartphone, you've already seen AI in some shape or form, and you're getting all these like pop-ups of this is the new AI thing and this can do. And if you have a program that you use, that's all of the AI has gotten pushed out. Now it's adoption. Now we're in the adoption phase of how everybody's integrating with it. Do they like it? Do they not like it? But you have an entire contingent of creatives that are out there. You have people in Hollywood. You have tastemakers who are avidly against this. You're watching, you know, Colbert, and you've got a famous person saying AI is the worst thing to ever happen to humanity. And then you've got somebody else over here from your business saying AI is going to be the greatest thing to happen to our business since sliced bread. It's very much, we're in this state of you cannot win everybody over saying you're going to use AI. If you're going to do anything with generative AI tools, you're going to make somebody upset because, and you will also, you know, have people that are really excited about it. I find myself in this interesting space because I'm somebody who came from a creative background, but I'm also very much like a early adopter tech person who's like, I want to know everything it can do because I want to see how it can play out. But in that space, you also have like artists in the local community who are like, this is actively taking away my business. This is actively hurting my, you know, what I am capable of doing in my day-to-day because you have AI art and things like that. So it's a fluctuating universe right now. So the reputational risk of saying this is a tool that we're using, this is how we're integrating into our business, you might get pushback from employees, you might get pushback from, you know, people on the outside, your consumers, if you're implementing this without taking that into consideration.
I think a
Yeah,
good
that is-
example of that, when you say that, I think of Wayne and Clover. They took over the Ghostlight, the one on the original, I think. And it just all of a sudden the new logo is Wayne and Clover, and it's AI. And
Right.
there was such uproar over that it overshadowed their grand opening. It's like,
And
this
also
is the
this-
conversation now instead of the grand opening of the coffee shop.
And this awesome thing that they were doing for the community, and it was unfortunate because it was very much it was a quick choice made for expedience sake, and it made total sense. Like in a vacuum, it makes complete sense to do it because you're like, listen, we're trying to get up and running, we're taking over this business, we need a solution now. And it's like, that's great. However, optically, the consumer pushback is, okay, this means, does this mean that they're not going to actually care about the local community? Are they not going to support local artists? Are they not going to support, you know, their employees? Are they going to cut corners? That's the view on the outside. And the way that they handled it specifically was fantastic, because they were like, listen, this is why we did it. It was complete transparency. And also the people who started that and took that business over are amazing humans. I don't want to make sure to say that because it was a great act that they did. But it was a misstep that created this pushback immediately. But it was very much this, it's like, I like to call it the trust tax, is that by utilizing these tools and putting it out there for consumers, like, you pay a trust tax. You're paying for it in consumer trust.
Yeah, those are excellent points. I completely agree with you. I think that you know, that really hits on like why I wanted to have this conversation, because like I feel like it's really easy to see all the super polarized messaging around AI, where it's like everything should be AI forever, always, or no, never, anything ever. And whereas, like, you know, most people just want to know, like, okay, can this like improve my life in some way? Can this let me do a better job? I do think that there are kind of two separate groups of people, to my mind, when it comes to AI adoption. There are people who are like, can this help me make a better impact? Can this help me connect with people better? Can this help me serve my customers better? And then, excuse me, on the flip side, there are people who are like, how can I use this to cut corners? So like, for example, you get like some of these bigger companies who, as soon as all the AI stuff started happening, are like, cool, let's fire half of our people. And then the remaining 50% of people will have to probably work way harder for the same amount of money, or maybe less money, because we're threatening them as being replaceable with AI. Like, there's a very clear distinction to me between like people who probably use it like we use it, where it's just like, I want to use this to do what I'm doing better and serve my community better. And then there's like, you see, and I feel like I mostly see this with like big corporations, but those type of companies where you people like the CEO or whoever is immediately like, oh yeah, we can replace all our humans with AI, like screw those people, right in the trash. And I think there's a very clear distinction between those, where it's like, do you value the human element, or there's like an eagerness with those type of people to believe that they can replace humans with AI, which I fundamentally disagree with. And I think there's like a really key philosophical distinction between the two. Sorry, I'm probably going on a tangent, but
no, I think it's an important point to make, because you have all of where we currently are in the AI landscape, which is, you know, if you use ChatGPT, it's one of the things you say in the current digital landscape, that where we currently are is in this mass adoption phase. And you have people that see it as this incredible solution that will, you know, revolutionize everything. And especially from the large, you know, sort of those larger companies, you know, large, not small, medium, we're talking about like large, big leviathans. They're looking at it as this bottom line of not necessarily the human piece, you know, but if you're a small business or a medium-sized business, you see how it's being applied on the ground and day to day in the actual applications. Or like if you're a teacher and you're seeing it in your schools, that you're seeing how this is impacting humans. And it's it's really fascinating to see because it's easy to make money with it quick, but it's really going to be difficult to see how this is going to get applied to everybody long term. But it reminds me a lot of like the .com boom, where you had all of this stuff that came out really fast, and everybody got this race to make a buck because it's possible to make really big money right now, and it was back then. It's like, but there will eventually be a leveling out
point.
of all of this.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I would also say that there are companies, particularly those large ones, that are damaging talent pipelines because AI is taking over the entry level where people are learning. And for data analytics as an example, there's not an entry level data analytics position anymore. It is a data scientist position where you have a master's versus even a bachelor's.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because like
I don't think I can hear you, Salem. I'm sorry.
Huh? Oh,
it might be on my end.
Can anyone else hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But that's a really good point, the talent pipeline thing. Is like, yeah, are you going to trade your long-term health for short-term benefits? Right. Also, another complicating factor of that is this sort of like arms race that's taking place between the HR department on the one side, or recruiters or whoever, using AI for scanning the job applications, which seems to have questionable efficacy. And then on the other side, there's the applicants using AI to fill out the applications and like create the best applications. And like, I've seen a bunch of people calling out where like the HR department wrote them back saying like, well, you clearly used AI in your application, so we're rejecting your application. And it's like, but you guys were using AI to scan it. How's that fair?
I saw, it was like a month ago, there was a news story, back-to-back days, right? One day it was the recruiters, the human resources department being quoted and being on camera saying, you know, we can tell, and so don't use AI. We're not gonna accept that. And the next day, the story was about, you should use, somebody else. You should use AI to help you do this. Take the job description and match it, and then send it. I'm like, okay, you're sending incredibly mixed messages here. And how hypocritical? Okay, how hypocritical is it for you to use an applicant tracking system, which is AI, and then criticize me for using AI to send you my version of a resume? Yeah.
This is what I'm going to say is a much broader topic, so we'll probably leave it there. But I really fundamentally feel like the corporate hiring landscape is like utterly broken. Like when you see people going like, oh, I submitted 1,000 job applications in the last 3 months and only heard back from one company. It's like, wow, that system is broken. That makes no sense. Anyway, we should move on to the next slide, because I want to let people have a hard out at noon. And we probably kind of ended up organically talking about a lot of this stuff, but so where does AI really shine? I think it's important to just make a distinction between like, there are things it's good at and there are things it's not good at. So what it is good at, sorting data, kind of first pass analysis, like just kind of giving you like a general vibe without just like a quick general vibe on like data or on a report or something. Breaking through blank page syndrome, where like you need to like create some social media posts. I don't know if I'd recommend having it write the full post for you, but going from having a blank page to having something on the page that you can work on, super valuable. Organizing your thoughts, anywhere we're using it kind of like as a personal assistant, I think is good. So there's always going to be places where you need something that's just like good enough, a lot of data related stuff. If you have a job that involves data, AI should be your best friend. Anything you guys want to add?
I see Rochelle in the chat and Haley in the chat. Rochelle says, I've gotten my data validation down from manual 5 to 6 hours to like an hour, and it's great. And Haley says that's
Yeah.
amazing, and I agree.
That's a great example. Yeah. Yeah, anything where you have like some giant set of data or like giant set of busy work where you're wanting to like extract trends or like sort it in a certain way where like it ends up where like maybe each individual record doesn't end up being like that important, and as long as it's like broad strokes correct, it's fine. That's a great use case for AI.
Yeah. I was working with an inventory, a piece of inventory yesterday, and it would have taken me days to play with formulas and do different things and using different tools to get what I really needed, get it normalized, go out to websites, get additional information. And in about 2 hours on ChatGPT, I got it where I needed it. ChatGPT, I sent an agent out to go to the website and get product names to go with item numbers and
Nice.
set it. And I obviously, I mean, I spot checked it, but I have it had almost 12,000 rows on this Excel sheet. So I'm not going and checking 12,000.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Excel, actually, that's a good example of this, and then also of something that's like sort of a different product that's not just one of the GPT or Claude's. I use Google Sheets, the Google's equivalent of Microsoft Excel, and they've been rolling out AI integration stuff for that, which I guess uses Gemini because that's Google's AI. But those are awesome. I'm not sure. I think it might be a premium like Google Workspace feature at the moment. I don't know if it's publicly available, but like you could come in and just be like, okay, I have these like raw columns of data, and you can like give it a natural language command, and it will turn that into a full spreadsheet with like appropriate formulas and add additional columns based on the nature of the data that it thinks might be appropriate. That I think is an amazing tool. You do still have to like spot check it, obviously, but I'm a big spreadsheet nerd. I love spreadsheets because I'm a giant nerd. So I thought that was amazing.
I got this candle for my daughter for Christmas. The calming scent of a color-coded spreadsheet. So I'm right there with you.
That's great. Maria in the chat, I just want to mention this. She said, I appreciate the focus on using AI to enhance and increase our performance. We still have to be in the driver's seat. So yes, it's great to save time. And for me personally, it has helped me ask better questions and think more creatively and critically. Absolutely. And I think that's absolutely sort of to sort of like tack on to both of your thoughts, that the one thing that I found as far as the benefit that AI has is like that sort of using these generative AI tools, it helps me better parse through information, whether it be, there's a massive document that I'm trying to find pieces through, or to, if I've written a big block of text, going, what am I missing? What are the pieces that I could improve upon? Because ultimately, like I like to use what I call, I don't know if I'm going to call it the sandwich method or the reverse sandwich method. I have yet to decide, because it's, all the input is stuff that I've decided that it's, whether I wrote something from scratch or it's data that I'm specifically looking up in Google or whatever it is. I'm starting with the content and the data that I want it to parse through, and then hand it over saying, okay, either identify the gaps or tell me, what pieces I'm missing or what are some things that it's like a second set of eyes basically. And then the output is something that I take back and go, okay, I'm going to now take this information that has, hopefully improved what I'm producing, and then making it mine again. Because at the end of the day, it's like our fingerprints are all over this, and we have to be able, there's no AI that it's like, well, AI said this. It's like, well, you're still the one who has to decide whether or not it's of value. That's at the end of the day. Yeah. So it's sort of, I don't know, the sandwich, reverse sandwich, I don't know which is the bread and what's not anyway.
Yeah, I like that though, because I'm a pretty firm proponent that, I mean, at least at the moment, there's almost no task where you can truly just hand it over to AI and like trust it to do it start to finish. I think the way to use it is like internally within processes where the humans starting it, the humans finishing it. But there's a lot of individual steps where it can like, you know, keep you from getting locked into analysis paralysis or save you the trouble of going down like a research rabbit hole on something that's ultimately not that important. I have a friend who has like a fair, you know, some like degree of like self-confidence issues and is sometimes scared to ask questions about like work stuff because they don't want to like look stupid. And they have gotten great use out of using AI tools because they can ask things that they're scared to ask because they think it might be a stupid question, but it doesn't matter with the AI because it's not a person.
Right.
We are at noon. I wouldn't mind just kind of rushing through the next couple slides for like, if we go for like another 5 minutes, if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
Cool. Let's try to wrap up here. And this stuff's all just kind of like my opinion. So, but where you should not use AI, in my opinion, I think a big one is you have to only use AI in domains where, and this is like in situations where the details matter. But I think you can only use it in domains where you have expertise, because if you're not like, if you're like, for example, if you're not a writer and you're using it to write things for you, you might not be as dialed in on the things it's doing that are bad writing, the things that it's doing that are just wrong, the things that it's doing that are obvious tells that it is AI writing. Excuse me, like me, excuse me, sorry. Me as a writer or me as a programmer, I'm more equipped to use it for writing tasks or for programming tasks because I know what good and bad output looks like. If you aren't well versed in that subject, you're on really shaky ground to be using it to automate something.
And you know what your voice is, and you know when it doesn't sound like you.
Yeah, excuse me. And then other ones, and these are all just kind of, these should probably be obvious, but I wouldn't use it in anything health or medical related. I mean, don't bet your life on it. Important financial decisions. I mean, basically any type of important like decision making, I probably wouldn't turn to it. Like maybe use it to like spitball ideas, but not to make the decision for you. Things that are very nuanced decisions that require a lot of like human experience and wisdom, like things that are like very excuse me, very like socially driven or very like kind of executive decision making type of stuff. I tend to see it as not very well equipped to handle those situations because like the AI has like people's experiences in its data set, but it does not have genuine wisdom and experience itself. It can only pretend to. And then just real quick, legal liability exposure, cybersecurity exposure, things where you're like trying to make a genuine human connection. Don't try to use AI for that. It's not going to work. Confidential data or privacy concerns, which we already kind of discussed. If you work for like a big company or a government, they might have a private AI instance that you can feed confidential data to, but if that's the case, you will know that. Anyone want to add anything to that?
I actually disagree to a point on a couple of these. I think that AI can be a great tool for research, for gathering information, health and medical, financial decisions, business decisions. However, the caveat to that is you can't blindly trust it.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
It's a tool to help you learn. And if you do have, so I used it when I believe I broke a bone a month ago now, to do some research, and it aligned with what I already believed. But that was not my only resource. So I would say that, I would not say absolutely not. I would say that it needs to be viewed with skepticism. It needs to not be your only source and not the final decision.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I guess I was more saying like, don't let it make the decision for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, using it as a tool in that process is I believe is fine. You just have to very much approach it with skepticism.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on to the next bit here. Oh, that was the end actually. So yeah, that was everything I had prepared. We're already over on time here, but if anybody has any last thoughts they want to share before we hop off.
Well, Maria's in the chat that as what we were talking about, she says, and also with that to prompt to see research.
Oh yeah, using AI to find primary sources is a good methodology. So there's like you can ask it to give you the information directly, or you can ask it where you should look for the information. And that can often be a better methodology. Yeah. So that's a very good point.
And one of the great prompting things that I promote is when you are researching is ask it to cite its sources.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell it to cite where that information is coming from, so you can go to that source for more or validate the source.
Yeah, although you do have to you do have to check the sources because it might make up sources.
Yes, and I've seen it do that. I've called it out.
Yes.
So.
Oh yeah, I get caught up like arguing with it sometimes, or I'm like, why did you tell me this? That's wrong. And it'll be like, you're right, I was wrong. It's like, and I'm like, why am I arguing with a computer? Cool. Well, I'll let everybody go because I'm sure we've all got a lot to do. So I really appreciate you all joining me for the discussion. I would encourage everybody watching to follow Haley and Corrine and Marty on LinkedIn or any other channels you guys want to promote.
I'm everywhere. I'm not hard to find.
I was going to say we have a LinkedIn group for AI Dayton. We are trying to turn that into a space to kind of, especially locally, to get resources together so that if people have tools that they found and Salem, I hope that you go in there and you post this to that, because I think this is really important, and I'm very grateful that you put this on, because I think as we have these conversations, we figure out just exactly how it fits into what we're doing every day, because it is changing everything that we're doing technologically. It's sort of adding a new component to it. So thank you for hosting.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for coming. And I'll go ahead. I'll join your group as well. I don't think I had gotten around to that. But yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. I will be posting the full video of this on YouTube, and I'll be posting various like chopped up clips of it on LinkedIn. But yeah, thanks for coming. Everybody have a nice day.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.